Okay, so this is the second video on Haraway's the Cyborg Manifesto. And again, I know this is a really difficult article, but again, I just want to stress that you must read it. It is a seminal text in new media theory, and even though it is really complex, I am here to help you along. And now what I want to do in the second video is to call your attention to the bottom of page 304 on the article. And to this focus that Haraway has on a theory by Richard Gordon, which he calls our new situation, as she terms it, where we're working under a system where technology is so influential to our productivity. He's calling this situation the new homework economy. Now, again, I want to stress that there's this shift that has taken place in the late 20th century and early 21st century, where we're moving from machines or technology that was invented under the Industrial Revolution in the late 18th century, early 19th century, steam-powered factories and printing presses and weaving looms and things that had an incredible impact on how people lived their lives, harkening back to McLuhan's The Medium is the Message, so that these technologies, what was most important was not, that they existed or what they produced, but how they impacted the scale, pace, or pattern of people's lives. Now, under the new Industrial Revolution, what we're focusing on is how digital technology has impacted our lives, how it's impacted the scale, pace, or pattern of our lives. And Richard Gordon here is focusing on what he calls the homework economy. And basically, he's saying that the new digital technology is affecting the scale, pace, or pattern of our lives in these ways. So, which is to name, I'm going to call your attention here to this paragraph, to name a restructuring of work that broadly has the characteristics formerly ascribed to female jobs literally done only by women. Work is being redefined as both literally female and feminized, whether performed by men or women. That is important. Whether performed by men or women. So work is being feminized whether or not, regardless of the gender or sex of the person who is doing the work. So this is what it means to be feminized. And as I'm reading off these sentences, I want you to think about the way in which women's work has been characterized colloquially in our culture. Women's work is never done. In other words, moms, wives, girlfriends, women in general are just constantly on call. We're the ones who are supposed to make all of the meals and clean up all of the food, according to typical gender roles. If a child cries in the middle of the night, you have to be there. And basically the metaphor that's working out here is saying that technology does the same thing to us. We're always on call. So, to be feminized means to be made extremely vulnerable, able to be disassembled, reassembled, exploited as a reserve labor force. Okay, so I'm going to stop here for a second. Basically what they're saying here is that we don't have job security anymore. We are unable to rely on, say, getting a job right out of college like my father did and thinking that you would work that job the rest of your life. Instead, what we recognize is that we're probably going to be hired by some sort of corporate entity. We might be asked to move to a different country, to a different state, to a different place, and we'll be expected to do that, to be disassembled and reassembled. Like, for your job, you'll be expected that you have to leave where you currently are, and that's something that's required of us. Technology makes that possible, of course, right? Because you can work for a company that is located in Ohio but live in Florida or in India or in China. You can move around because technology allows us to do that. You don't need to be physically present in the location of your employer. And also to be exploited as a reserve labor force. So, in other words, that means not a lot of job stability. And this is true. We're seeing more and more people who are being hired to work jobs that are not salaried, that don't have benefits packages. In other words, you see people who are being hired on a contract by contract basis without a lot of the security financially and physically that we used to expect in the past. So also people are seen less as workers than servers. In other words, we generate less respect. We're seen as being easily replaceable. The work that we do is seen as being less valuable than that can be provided by technology. We're also subjected to time arrangements on and off the paid job that make a mockery of a limited work day. You'll notice, and some of you might have been surprised, that on my syllabus I say that I will only answer emails between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. And that is because of my personal experience of working decades, and over a course of time when this has become the norm. I was looking at somebody's work page the other day, and this person was gloating that they that they will respond to all requests made of them, even if it's on the weekends, even if it's in the evening. In other words, we're expected, and people even applaud those of us who say, I will work all the time around the clock. I am always working. And technology makes this possible, right? Like we get alerts on our phones, we get alerts on our computers that tell us that somebody has contacted us, even if we're not technically supposed to be at work at that time. And believe me, this can become exhausting over decades, which is why I've made the choice not to do that anymore, to not neglect my children and my personal life, and instead, let work consume my life all the time, because technology makes it possible. And it's not necessary, though. So anyway, to go on with Donna Haraway. Leading to an existence that always borders on being obscene, out of place, and reducible to sex. Now, I've been reading this portion of the sentence for decades now, and I don't entirely understand it. I do think that what she's trying to get at is that because of the factors that she's listed previously in this sentence, that we no longer have access to the kinds of respect that we used to in the past. That because of technology, that we are less valued as people. So that's kind of what I make of that portion of the sentence. So de-skilling is an old strategy newly applicable to formerly privileged workers. However, the homework economy does not refer only to large-scale de-skilling, nor does it deny that new areas of high skill are not emerging, or high skill, even for women and men previously excluded from skilled employment. Rather, the concept indicates that factory, home, and market, the way that we used to think of the world, you would go to work, and then you would go home, and then you could also buy things, are integrated on a new scale, and that the places of women are crucial and need to be analyzed for differences among women and for meanings of relations between men and women in various situations. So basically she's saying we need to just turn around and actually look at our roles the way that they are, and look at them critically, and think about what is causing that impact. So, and here she says, the homework economy is a world capitalist organizational structure is made possible by, not caused by, the new technologies. The success of the attack on relatively privileged, mostly white men's unionized jobs is tied to the power of the new communications technology to integrate and control labor despite extensive dispersion and decentralization. The consequences of the new technology are felt by women, both in the loss of the family male wage, if they ever had access to this privilege, and the character of their own jobs, which are becoming capital intensive, for example, office work and nursing. So, in summary, what she's saying here is that the new industrial revolution is producing a new worldwide working class, and we've all felt that. It's on the news every day. But she wants us to make sure that we recognize that this is notable in two significant ways. Women are producing the majority of labor, and this labor, whether it is produced by men or women, is feminized in the context of the new economy. So in other words, all of us are respected less, regardless of whether or not we're men or women. B, so that was A with 2 points. B, poverty is also feminized. So if you're poor, then you're looked down upon as being somehow less than your potential. And that C, that all of us, and again I want to stress this, all of us have been feminized, whether we're men or women. And this is caused by technology, the way in which we've been devalued underneath these new economics. All right, so now I'm going to move on to part 5, women in the integrated circuit. So here she says that this new economy breaks down earlier distinctions between public and private domains. And again, we've seen this played out in the news a lot. Things that we do in private can become public very easily. And it's basically back to the integrated circuit metaphor. She says that all of our institutions, the home, the state, the church, now function more like networked communication forms rather than the separated, discrete entities they once were under older forms of capitalism. So again, this idea that we're all like, our culture now is working like a microchip. Instead of there being separate parts of our daily lives and our culture and our government, that everything has become integrated like in a microchip, so that we're all connected to one another in a way that previously we were not capable of being before technology enabled us to be so connected. So think of this as like another way of talking about globalization. It's no longer possible for the United States to think about itself as just the United States. We're part of a global economy. We're part of a global network. Things that we do here in the United States have global effects, and that are going to then come back globally. Things that they do in response to our actions will also impact us. So we're networked. So she does mention this, and I do want to stress this too, that we should not be depressed. And it's easy to get depressed after reading her article and looking back and reflecting on what's going on around us in the world and what's happening. I know you guys are in college and you want to get a job, but don't be depressed. So she says cyborg ontology. And again, I want to stress that what ontology means is the way we think about who we are. And of course, she's already said we are cyborgs. So the way that we think about us as being cyborgs is that we need to think about this being as a cyborg as a set of partialities rather than an integrating whole. So she's saying resist this idea that we're being sucked up into this system, but that we can exert influences on the world, even as a way of resistance, by focusing on the separate parts of ourselves and not being sucked into this idea that we're just being eaten by this whole. So, in the last part of her article, she says, under the Cyborgs, a Myth of Political Identity, she makes 3 large arguments that we need to look at. And this is on page 535. Wait, that's not the right page number. Let's see here. So here we go. Page 311 and 312 through the end here. She has 3 large arguments. That the production of a universal totalizing theory is a major mistake that misses most of reality. Probably always, but certainly now. So again, focus on our parts. We need to take responsibility for the social relations of science and technology, which means refusing an anti-science metaphysics as a demonology of technology. So we need to take responsibility. That also means embracing the skillful task of reconstructing the boundaries of daily life and partial connections with others and in communication with all of our parts. And so she says we have to pay attention to science. And the cyborg imagery suggests a way out of the maze of dualisms in which we've explained our bodies and our tools to ourselves. So embrace the fact that we are